Hello, how are you today? We're so glad that you're here. It's cold in Atlanta. I hope that you're bundled up for the snows and the ice storms that are forecast around the country. That's good weather to have your fuzzy slippers on and a hot cup of tea handy, because today we're going to talk about how to write better stories using deep point of view. Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing, tutorials, and interviews by and for writers, speakers, and artists. This month, we're presenting the Right Start Online Summit. This is the last week. 20 experts are sharing 20 secrets in 20 days. It's been very, very exciting. This is day 16 of the summit, and it's episode number 226 of Marketers on a Mission, Reeling in Readers with Deep Point of View with author Jayme Manfield. Hello, Jayme. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
We're so glad that you're here. You have visited with us before. We always enjoy it. You've got something really tantalizing to talk to us about today. But before we get to the master class, can we talk about your books for just a minute? May I twist your arm?
Sure. I'll let you.
Here is Chasing the Butterfly, which, and viewers, I have all the links as usual to Jayme's website and her Amazon Facebook page, author page. Then here's the one that you've got an example for us in the class today, Rush.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about Rush. Just give us a synopsis of Rush since we're talking about it today a little bit.
Sure. Rush is set in 1893, and it is based on the true life story of my great-great-grandmother, who rode out in the Oklahoma land rush and secured her homestead, 160 acres, and lived in a sod house and taught school. But the neat thing was that she did it all as a young single woman with a young child. Her husband in real life had decided to head further west and left her. Didn't come back, and she said, well, I'm moving on with life. So it was based off her story, and really as I wrote the book and researched it heavily, it ended up being had a lot of truth to it. She lived a larger than life story.
And that were the times, weren't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you survived, you had led a larger than life story.
Yeah. And it was absolutely amazing, really, what those people had to do to make their way west and live out in the open prairies and survive. It was a fascinating time period.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have had the privilege of reading both books. Tell us before we move on. Also, I've got another question. These beautiful colors the colors are so rich. The graphic is so beautiful. Tell us where these came from, please. There's a story behind that.
There is. A very close friend of mine, Kelly Berger, painted both of those covers. And when I was first under contract, my agent had talked with my publisher and said, oh, Jayme's an artist. Would you consider her painting the covers? And they actually said, well, yeah, let's give that a go. And at first I thought, isn't that wonderful? I'm going to be the author and the illustrator of the cover. And I thought that was pretty neat. Well, as we got further and further into the editing process and the whole publication process, I got cold feet. And even though I do artwork, and I have for years and years, I thought this is a job for someone else. So I got in touch with Kelly, who's a professional, very established artist in Colorado and beyond. She read the manuscript, fell in love with them, and did both book covers. And, you know, we really attribute a lot of the initial sales when the books launched to those beautiful covers. And she was able to maintain that painterly feel, which is an artistic thread is through both of the stories, actually all the stories that I've written. So.
And the covers themselves are not embossed, but there's some special badges here. Tell us about those.
Both the books have really received some really special acclaim that I'm really proud of. Rush recently was what won the Illumination Christian Fiction, Enduring Christian Fiction Award. The other one on there was for editing, excellence in editing, and I had a great editorial team through Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas.
Oh.
And I was really excited. The book actually, Rush, was chosen for two of Colorado's most prestigious awards as Colorado Book of the Year. And I just found out that Rush has been chosen for what's called the Village Read. It's the biggest library system in Colorado, has chosen Rush as the Colorado Read. So I just got this news about a week ago. So it will just be wonderful visibility, and I get to do all these fun events. So it will be kind of like the community read in Colorado. So go figure.
That is way cool. Think about the marketing that you're going to be a part of, that they're doing all the effort and you're showing up and getting the benefit of.
That's right.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm a lucky person. So
congratulations to you for that.
Thanks.
Let me tell you quickly who's here, and we'll move right on into the master class.
Okay.
We've got Diana Derringer. Hello, Diana. Mary Lester, Gail Johnson, Gail Arbacast. I've already lost people. Christy Hareen, I believe. I'm still not saying that correctly. Christy, and I just apologize. I'm ignorant in this area. As it does sometimes, it tricks me, and it just shows me something for a little bit. So I'm sorry, I'll have to come back to you. Mary says, congratulations, that's God's favor on your book.
Thank you.
If you don't have yet, if you have not, let me back up. If you have not yet printed out the handout, the link is above the video. It's also in the comments, and it's 4 pages. We're going to go through it. This is not a step-by-step fill in the blank. That's not the way we're going. You're going to love it. It's going to be great. All right. Take it away, Jayme, please.
All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit here. Deep point of view, I find so fascinating because I kept hearing that term, especially over the last couple years. And quite frankly, and to be honest, I thought, what is that? Well, come to find out that I was really writing in deep point of view in my novels. And so I kind of decided I'm going to really figure out what this is. And because I would go to a lot of book clubs and people would say, wow, I was in your book. I was in the scene. I was Ella. I was Mary riding the horse. And I thought, well, that's wonderful. That's what I intended you to do. And now I've got to tell you a little bit. That's largely because I do really enjoy writing in first person point of view. Both of those novels are written in first point of view, but that does not necessarily mean you're in deep point of view. So I'm going to explain that a little bit. So let's back up just a little bit. So point of view, we all know it. It hangs over our shoulders. We know not to be hopping into different characters' heads and what's kind of allowed and not allowed, whether you choose to write in first person point of view or probably more commonly third person point of view. So there's lots of rules we know for point of view. And I love this one quote, and it's on your handout, even though we know, it's point of view is the narrator's position in relation to the story. But I love this quote by Anne Kopchak, the way the reader travels through the story. And I love that. That's kind of a deep point of view, I guess, quote in a way, because we do want our readers to be traveling through the story. And the way we do that, to take that into deep point of view, is to remove as much author intrusion as possible. So I love this analogy, and I've heard this at different classes of teaching point of view. But if we put a camera in our hands with a nice long lens, and we know that we can zoom that lens in and out. Well, we're doing that as we write. There's moments, there's scenes that were very intimate and very close in the character's head. And there's times that we do need to zoom out to move a story along. So that psychic distance, that narrative distance does ebb and flow. So deep point of view, those moments that we're going in deeply, more intimate. We're really in the character's head, the main the point of view character's head. So I'm going to share a few examples, and we're going to try some things together. But the most important thing, I think, before we just jump right into that is to understand that when we're writing, and when we know this in fiction, and we can say it, but it's not always so easily done, is we're sitting here as an author, we're at our laptop or wherever we happen to be writing, and we're dispensing this story, yet we've probably all had those moments of where we get into what I like to call the writing zone, and you really kind of forget that you exist as the author. You are the character. And I think that's what is so thrilling about writing. Until I really started writing fiction, I had never experienced something like that before. So you're not only getting into the head of the character, but you're in their skin. And you're dispensing to the reader what that character is feeling, what they're sensing, and think all the senses, seeing, feeling, smelling, all our five senses. And you're so engrossed in that character that the author is really non-existent at that point. And I'll say a little side note, because I think it can be kind of an intimidating role to take on as an author. My suggestion would be, too, that you just have fun in that role. And for instance, especially like on those first drafts, just write. And don't get crazy about the whole, am I in deep point of view? Am I close enough, close enough? Just write. One, you'll probably find yourself in that character a lot more than you would maybe imagine. But just write. You can go back in editing phases and tighten the writing and reconstruct sentences and scenes and images so you are more in a deep point of view. So I guess I always like to kind of qualify that, because once I learned that I kind of wrote perhaps maybe a little bit naturally in deep point of view, all of a sudden I found myself thinking, I need to do this all the time, and I got a little cold feet. So anyway, all right, so moving along with our handout. So that narrative, yeah.
May I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Quick. What's the difference in deep point of view and show, don't tell?
Okay, so in deep point of view, and that's going to get down here in the handout on some of the snags or what it's not. Deep point of view, theoretically, kind of almost eliminates telling. If you're in deep point of view, you can't just be telling. She knew, she thought, she heard. It is showing. You are so ingrained in the visual capacity of the words that you've stepped out of that place that's really easy to be in. And again, I've given myself kind of grace that when I'm just needing to get a story told, just write. I think as you practice it and you get more comfortable with it, you find that you're not having as much maybe to go back and clean up, but just write at first. At least that's my advice. So I'm going to slip my glasses on so I can read what I have here. So then that narrative distance eliminated. The writer, as we said, becomes the point of view character in the full sense, the thoughts, the wishes, the action. The character owns the story. I like thinking of it that way. And the author becomes non-existent. So this one example from Rush, and again, now remember, this is written in first person point of view. Trapped. The realization spun through my mind, and for one brief moment, I was drowning. First a whirl of blue, green, and white, gasping for air, then everything went black. So we know she's drowning. She could have stood in the middle of the river and said, I thought I was drowning. I knew I was drowning. but instead I took out any of those intrusion words and just put myself as that character right in that terrifying moment of, and of course there's more in that scene, but of her long petticoat being weighed down by the water and twisting around her legs, and her feet slipping on the kind of mossy rocks and being pulled down. And so it's a very sensory experience. It works great in action scenes, especially, or where the character, you really want to convey a very deep sense of emotion, whether that's elation or being terrified or whatever it is. Another example now, and so what I wanted to clarify is, so that's written in first person. There's a little bit of a misconception that, and I mentioned this, that if you write in first person, you're already in deep POV. Well, not necessarily, because I could have said, like I was just referencing, I thought I was going to drown. So you can still remove yourself out of that deep POV and still be writing from the I perspective. So just don't be fooled by that, because some people will say, well, if you want to do deep POV, just write first person. Well, not necessarily. So here's an example now of from Hearts That Survive, and it's this novel here. It's by Yvonne Lehman, beautiful, beautiful writer, prolific writer. She's also the editor of my next book that's coming out, and boy, the bar's been raised really high for me on this one, but she's wonderful. But here's a little section and she writes in third person. Caroline sat for a moment listening to the silence. She could get undressed. However, she walked barefoot to the window and looked out, but saw nothing. And for lack of anything else to do, she slipped her feet into her shoes. So it's not a scene with huge action happening. And in fact, the author was just conveying kind of a sense of boredom and ambivalence, so I picked that intentionally because it wasn't a shocking emotion that the author was pulling us into, but just kind of a more passive emotion. Yet I think we could really feel that, get a little sense of who this character is. So deep POV, again, what is it? It's tight writing. It's clear writing. Often it throws in a mixture of short sentences and longer sentences. It can tighten even paragraphs. So yes, there can be still description and a lot of imagery being portrayed, but it's still tight writing. And thus the whole flow of the story goes better. So let's see. On that next page there. So the story's experience, and you could think of those two examples again, or authors that that write in that really deep sensory experience where you're kind of like, whoa, I was on that mountain, or I was in that boat, or or I was lying in that hospital bed and I could feel every ache and pain that character was having. The story's experienced from the inside rather than the outside looking in, and maybe that's a helpful kind of imagery, like the camera lens. It's when you're in deep POV, you're in it versus kind of looking into the story. So the reader can live vicariously through the actions and the emotions of the character. And of course, that's why if we think back to characters that we love so much or despise so much, it's because we became them. So to speak. Just, gosh, it's hard to beat fiction. Just go out these story worlds and get to become other people for a while. It's so fun. Okay, so the action, the character's thoughts are immediate and personal, kind of saying the same thing, but just in different ways to kind of wrap our heads around it together. And then, as you mentioned, Patricia, it's a very, very powerful tool to avoid telling and show instead. And, as particularly for new writers, or I should include myself now going into working on my third manuscript, you think that you've got it, that you're not telling. And then the editor points out, this is telling. You think, well, my goodness, I thought I took care of that. But then when you kind of step back and say, all right, was I really there? Was I really putting the reader there? No. How could I put them there? What words could I eliminate? So that telling versus showing sounds so easy just to say it, like, don't do that. But I think it's a difficult thing to avoid. Now, a little side note on that, and I think I have it lower in my notes there. There are times in stories that you do tell. There has to be some narrative momentum to keep stories going. If you were in deep point of view all the time, and I think that'd probably make any author probably a crazy person at the end of it, but the reader as well. There are, think of that camera lens again. There is that natural ebb and flow to go in deeply when you want to move that reader, just wrap around their neck and pull them into the story. And there's times to let them have a little freedom and move along in the story. So it's not that telling is this horrible, naughty thing to do. It's a balance, just like eating healthy. It's a balance, right? I still eat chocolate. No one's going to tell me I can never have chocolate or oatmeal chocolate chip cookies in my life. So it's a balance. Okay. All right. So, but I think the best thing about deep point of view, and the most fun thing about it, is you become so intimate, so knowledgeable about your characters, particularly your characters that are telling the story, your point of view characters. And some of these, I made kind of a list of questions here. This is not it's not a comprehensive list, but who are you? Now, it sounds like you as the reader, you as the other writer, but if you're asking your character that, or if I'm pretending that I'm Mary in Rush, who am I? What do I want more than anything? What I need to know those things about myself as a character. How far would I go to get things? That was a big thing with Mary. How far? What would she give up in her life to go out, give up everything to race across a prairie and risk her life to have this life in basically a godforsaken territory? So, I've listed some of those other questions there. How do you feel about people? And the thing is, and I've been very guilty of this, you get so excited about starting a new story and you launch into the story, and I'm very much of a pantser, so I'm like, I can't wait, I gotta get going. I can't, who has time to outline or figure out their characters? I'll meet them in the middle of the story. But I've learned kind of the hard way that if I would spend that time hanging out with my characters first, and getting in their head and their heart and their soul, then writing in deep point of view comes much more naturally. So that time is well spent to get to know them well and ask those characters the hard questions too. So those questions might be of some help. And what isn't deep POV? All right. It's not a rambling of narrative or monologue. It doesn't mean that, if you go back into old classics, I love the old classics, but there were long stretches of description, often starting the books, beautiful description, but not necessarily from a character where the reader would necessarily be feeling the emotion, maybe gaining a lot of information. So there's that fine line of it's not just a time where you just dump a whole bunch of stuff. It's also not italicized sections. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ever italicize when you're writing in deep point of view. You might have a character in deep POV, and they do then have a thought that you need to distinguish with italics. I try to use them very sparingly, so when they are used, the deep POV characters in thought. But I've seen this in a few people's writings that they've brought over. When I kind of share with people about their writing, they'll italicize it and think, oh, that makes it deep. Well, that's just italicized. So just be kind of careful with those. I already spoke on that other bullet point, used throughout an entire story. Make sure you give your readers and yourself some breaks. So when you are in it, it's impactful. Now, again, it's kind of that balance. You don't want to just kind of drop in some deep POV here and there and think, wow, I've taken care of it. I mark that off on my did I do it list. But, you be sensitive to when you're really drawing, that character needs to really draw that reader in. So these POV snags, and this because you kind of can say, well, okay, this is all great, but how do you do this? Well, there's a few real tangible things that help. Filter words. I never really thought filter words I never really thought about them, even though they were called filter words. So she thought, he saw, they wondered, he knew, or describing the senses, she heard, he felt snow trickle down his back, whatever. Just snow trickled down his back. I mean, it's the simplicity of pulling some of those words out that come so naturally as we talk or write. And again, here's a little trick. Don't beat yourself up on your first drafts. Write it, go back, put some of those filter words that I mentioned there in your search the document, see where they come up, and then you can pluck them out without having to go back and rewrite sections. But that will tighten your writing. So here's an example. This is shallow. He knew he'd seen her before and wondered if she would recognize him. Seems harmless enough, okay? But better, her hairstyle might be different, but the dark brown eyes were unforgettable. Had the years away from home changed him too much? So you see how we're saying the same thing, but now we're in the character's head. So much more fun. And also notice the use of a question. Questions, you don't want to go crazy with these again, but question marks can really flip things around and draw you in. I mean, think about it, you're asking a question, to your reader. And so that's a nice little twist to break things up with questions. Limit the dialogue tags. He said, she replied, they asked. And obviously we always want to kind of avoid those in a lot of back and forth conversation if they don't have to be used to clarify who's talking. Just kind of let the conversation happen as long as we know who's saying what. But here's an example. I don't want to eat my dinner, he said. Instead, I don't want to eat my dinner. Focused on his plate, he swirled his fork in the mashed potatoes, bits of roast and brown rice until the mound resembled the gift left by the puppy on the rug earlier that day. Well, yes, I've added a lot more to that. Obviously, this person telling this probably has had kind of a rotten day. And now what's on the plate looks like what happened earlier in the day. And Patricia knows that I have a new golden retriever puppy in the house, and so this is obviously very fresh on my mind. So it's a very visual aspect of my current life. But anyway, you can, and of course it would have to make sense with your scene and your story and your characters, but have some fun with, get rid of those dialogue tags, and instead let us know what the character's feeling, seeing, sensing in those moments. Okay, so how are we doing so far? Everyone out there okay?
Yes, may I ask a couple of questions on the viewers' behalf?
Uh-huh.
All right. So let's see. We've got, get back over here to my screen. This isn't a question, Angie Mays. I'll just give you some comments first.
Okay.
Angie Mays says, I've been trying to get this into my writing for over 2 years.
I love the honesty. And Angie, I appreciate that really, because you might be doing it more than you think, you know. And again, my biggest suggestion, I guess, to start, if you feel like, wow, I just haven't got where I want to be with this, is start with your characters, getting to know them really well. And again, I admitted, you know, I like to jump into my stories, and characters jump into the story in the middle of it. But really ask those tough questions of your characters first, and really feel like maybe you do that, you know, get to know them well. There's an exercise that it's the very end of the sheet here too that might kind of help with some scenes that you're writing. And that was, I'll just kind of jump ahead down to it, where at the very it says, and try this one. And I don't know why I wrote briefly write a brief. That was very redundant, but you know what I mean. Briefly write a meaningful memory from your point of view, okay? And change it to a he or she memory. Because when you tell something from your, you know, that first person point of view, and then if you write your story, you know, in third person, and you then take it out and put it back into the third person, you most likely will find that you're, at least, even if you have some filter words or something to pull out, you'll find that you're deeper, you're more intimate with the meaning, the emotion of that scene or that action, whatever is happening. So I don't know if that's helpful. You know, again, I just kind of started writing in first person, and so I think POV maybe kind of fell into my lap a little easier. Now I'm sure there's third person, you know, writers out there that would argue with me and say, you know, you don't have to be a first person writer, of course, to be able to do that. But it's just, you're kind of there already, I guess. So I think that's a good place to experiment. And then you can shift that out of where, you know, in the point of view that you want to be writing in.
Okay. Let's look at another question. Christy, Harine, deep point of view and tense, present versus past. Oops.
Okay, great. That's a great question. You know, this is so interesting because my publisher actually just put this little survey question out to us the other day and said, what do you think's better, you know, writing in present or past? What do you think your readers like? And pretty much everyone chimed in and said past tense. Readers just tend to kind of enjoy that more. Maybe it's a more natural feeling. I don't know. It really doesn't matter with deep POV. You can do it in either or. There's a misconception again that I've read, and I've actually read some, you know, blogs on this. You know, to do deep POV, you know, stay in the present tense. It's your word choice. It's your description that's putting it deep POV versus whether you said someone, you know, ate their breakfast or they're eating their breakfast. So I write in past mostly, and again, I wouldn't get hung up. I mean, stay consistent in your tense, obviously, but I wouldn't get hung up on that. That's going to determine your how deep you can go with your POV.
Okay. We've got another question, and it is Angie Mays asks, if you have a character. I saw that, Christy. Finally. Angie May asks, if you have a character that doesn't pick up on sensory clues, would the author include those? For example, if Ray doesn't notice physical attributes, I would include how Annalise's hair was styled differently.
Okay, let's see, I'm not sure if I followed that. So you're saying, like in that example I gave, if he's not one that picks up on physical clues?
I think she asked this question based upon her work.
Okay.
Before you shared what your example.
Okay.
So she has a character, a male character, who doesn't pick up on sensory clues.
Okay.
And in that case, should she mention as the author or the narrator that Annalise's hair was styled differently, for example?
Okay. Well, if that wouldn't be true to your character, and if that was an important point about your character, that he's kind of clueless with sensory clues, I know I wouldn't use that.
Okay.
Now, remember, it doesn't have to necessarily just be sensory, though. He still has to be someone that has reactions. Maybe he has intent about something. Maybe he has an intent toward her, a wish, a goal. So I would capitalize on those if you're trying to make a point that he doesn't pick up on those kind of things. And actually, you can kind of have fun with that and take it so deep with him that the reader's kind of like, wow, this guy really is clueless. you know. And then I'm assuming you're telling it from his point of view. If it was her point of view, then you could obviously have some fun that this guy is clueless. He's not noticing, my new beautiful hairstyle. So, yeah, but you have to ultimately be true to your character.
Okay. That makes sense. Before we get too much further, I want to mention that in her generosity, Jayme is giving away 1 copy of Rush today. We'll tell you how we're going to choose the winner, but I want you to know this is a fabulous book, as is Chasing the Butterfly, both outstanding fiction.
Thank you.
And another outstanding fiction author is here today as well, Kathy Elliott. I am a big fan of both of you and your books. Draw me right in. I'm just glued to it, and I can't stand it when the alarm goes off. Make dinner. I get sort of aggravated.
Yeah.
I want to keep reading that book.
That's funny. One note about your comment about the sensory and what someone may not notice. In both of those books that you were just holding up of mine, because I'm an artist, I do artwork and such. I have for years. And so I've had people say to me, oh, your books are so vivid. Is it because you're an artist? Well, maybe is how I look at the world, how I view the world through, for me, the visual sense is very strong. But I think what's beautiful about Deep POV is it really makes any writer an artist. Or you can think of it as a movie producer. You're creating these visual scenes, even if it's a visual scene of a character who's clueless about the senses. If that makes sense. So that's the beauty of writing in this style. There's another book, and I didn't want to forget to share this. I picked this up for myself. It's called Rivet Your Readers with Deep Point of View by Jill Elizabeth Nelson. I picked this up on,
that's good.
On Amazon. And she's an author and a writing teacher. And it's kind of a neat little short book that just has a lot of examples and a lot of little exercises in it to just sharpen Deep POV. I thought she did a really nice job with this. It's very kind of user friendly, and it's always fun to pick up other craft books and hear what other people have to say. So she obviously took it more deeply than we're able to do on our program today. But anyway, that's a good little resource. It was priced very appropriately on Amazon. Showed up on my doorstep, and there you go.
Let's see. Got some. Lost you. Back to you. Excuse me. Lori Hatcher says, "Hi, Jayme Manfield."
Oh, hey! Hi, Lori.
Greetings from another Lighthouse Publishing author.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful person.
Kathy Elliott agrees that the book you just referenced is a great book. She has it also.
Oh, good.
Stacy Reynolds, Stacy Hitch says, I have the honor of marketing them.
Oh.
Judy Morrow's, let me go back. Angie May says, I made a presentation for the main points of Nelson's book just to check myself. And Judy Morrow says, a question posed on the avid readers of Christian fiction Facebook page asked if they preferred first or third person in novels. I was surprised that the majority preferred third person. Some even said they won't read a book in the first person.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard that?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I have heard, well, I haven't heard people necessarily say I won't read that. I've had people say they prefer third person. You know, it is such a preference. And I've even asked myself, you know, oh boy, should I just, you know, knock myself out of that world and write my next one in third person, just know that I can. And I don't know. There's another book here. I'm going to grab it off my shelf because you all, this wonderful author was on your show earlier, Cindy Sproul's.
Oh.
This is in defense of first-person writing. Cindy wrote this Liar's Winter, and it's in first person. Beautifully, beautifully written, very great examples of deep point of view from first person. So I love her writing. You know, that is a tricky thing. I guess it's kind of like when I hear people say, I don't read historical fiction, or I don't read suspense, or whatever. You know, I think there's always going to be, obviously, preferences, reader preferences, and I think more for me, the challenge is I do want to kind of pick myself up by the bootstraps and do, you know, a book in third person just so I don't get myself too ingrained in one world. But, you know, I think you do what feels the most natural to your voice too. And I just really enjoy the writing experience when I'm in first. So
To each his own.
yeah, that's right.
And the people that Christ has called you to serve, they will love your work in whichever point of view you write.
That's right. That's right.
So there's
Absolutely.
peace in that. The peace in that truth.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk in a few minutes. We're going to talk about the Writers on the Rock Christian Writers Conference, and you're on the faculty. But before,
Yes.
we've got a few minutes before we get there. So can you give us what kind of an invitation do we want to extend and use one person as an example, one response as an example? We talked about this earlier, that after the program, you'd be glad to look at up to 5 examples, submissions, I should say, and feedback on them. Let's get one going. Let's do one right now for an example of what to expect and what the process is. So give us some guidelines, some parameters for that. Amy.
Okay, so to practice our kind of going from a shallow to a deeper perspective. There's some on your handout there, and you're welcome to use those just as just a little, you know, you don't have to, it's Monday after all. You don't want to think too hard. So feel free to use one of those if you want to take one of those shallow examples. And turn that into, give it a whirl and turn it into deep. Now, we don't know, of course, the context of the line in a story, so you can make that up. And play with that, and you're welcome to send that, and I can kind of give a little feedback where, you know, if you kind of hit the mark or maybe try something else. Or that little part at the end, a brief, meaningful memory. I think it's really kind of fun, and it's, you know, it's short. What you maybe I kind of dabbled with one of going out on the canoe with my husband, and just that peaceful moment of, no, our 3 boys not being around, and how wonderful that was, and then converted that into she, putting that in, shifted that into third person. So either one, or if you would also, if you have a work in progress, you're like, kind of wondering if this section or this sentence or this little part of dialogue is hitting the mark, feel free to send that as well. You know, and I guess I speak from, you know, I don't have all the answers, and we're in this craft process together forever, but I can sure try to give you my feedback.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's review that. Well, we're doing live right now. If you have, you want to take one of the examples here, it's just a practice.
Yeah.
Go from shallow writing to deep point of view writing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take one and we'll dissect that and look at that really quickly. And then you can submit as many as you want, as often as you want. We're going to take up to 5 after the program, depending upon how much time Jayme has. So no unrealistic expectations, okay? She's not going to, this is for live viewers only. She's not going to be here every day for 2 weeks. Right? Or for 3 hours today. She's going to help us, and we're going to do one. Let me see if anybody has submitted yet. All right. I've got one. I don't know if it's got 3 sentences. I'll be glad to read it to you. Or can you see it there? It's Angie Mays. It starts with, he never kept his word.
Okay, I'm just refreshing my computer here to see if I can see it, but
I don't mind to read it to you, but you tell me.
okay, you go ahead and read it first, and I'll see if mine comes up.
Okay, it's 4. He never kept his word. Could she change her life now? Was it too late? There was so much she would have to prepare.
That's nice.
Yeah, Jayme.
Yeah, good job, Angie. Because she took out the filter. She took out new, mother knew. We don't need to know mother, because we know mom, she knows anyway. You didn't need to tell us that. Yeah, and so that's fun because, again, we don't know the context of the story. We're just kind of making it up. But what you wrote was much more poignant, much more interesting.
Yeah.
Angie, brave, good.
Yeah.
I always freeze up in conferences and such when they say, write an exam, write your response down. I think, oh my goodness, what do I do?
Okay, we've got time for another one. We're going to squeeze in another one if you've got an example. Not Angie, because we've already done ours. If you have one, lay it on us. And let's see. Let me see if there are other questions really quickly.
I also like how Angie used the questions in there, and they were short. See that? Was it too late? Nice, Angie.
Judy Morrow says, yes, the most natural for a voice makes so much sense. Thanks, Jayme.
You're welcome, Judy.
Gail Arbogast says, first person may make the reader uncomfortable because they're in another person's shoes. That's an interesting comment.
Yeah. Well, and I guess what I would say back to that is, really in third person, you still want your reader to be in the other person's shoes. You still are. You may not be using, the word I or me and making it that verbiage so direct. But again, the emotion or the action, you're there.
Okay.
You've put your reader there.
Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Lisa Worthy Smith says, great information. Always great to hear the thought process when writing deep point of view. Lauren Kraft, thanks for sharing with us. Let's see. I think that's everything. Mary Plieva, perhaps, is from Bulgaria. This is her 3rd or 4th time to be with us.
Oh,
that's neat, baby. That's cool. That's cool. All right, let's see if we got one more. Yes.
I see something from Mary Lester about nonfiction.
Yes. Can we address that?
Yeah. Again, I was speaking from a fiction writer's, driver's seat here. And it's interesting you bring that up because when I, read blogs and such on point of view and deep point of view, you don't hear it so much in reference to nonfiction. But I think particularly nonfiction can still be so personal and, it's like you're sitting there across the table from the expert or whomever is dispensing that information. So I think the voice, and voice is a hard thing to teach. Voice is voice, but that still can be very intimate in your word choice. especially in your nonfiction if you use antidotes, which I love that in nonfiction. That always seems to make more sense to me when they're trying to convey an idea or concept. So I think it's in those antidotes you can definitely kind of drive in some of these fiction point of view, deep point of view. I like Lori's comment there too about sometimes being uncomfortable. Oh,
It's good.
oh, are we good? Okay, there we go.
Sometimes being uncomfortable is good. That Cindy's book, Liar's Winter, made her uncomfortable, but in a good way.
Yeah. Can you still see me okay? I kind of went from a big screen to a little screen. I can see myself.
You're perfect.
Okay.
As always.
I like looking at you a lot better than myself, but that's okay.
Okay. Continue asking questions or making comments. We're going to tell you now about the conference. If we have time, we'll come back and live and address comments and questions. And if not, we'll do that after the program ends. Okay? We're not going to forget you. We're here for you. We're here to help you. Within reason, though, okay? Don't go crazy. Let me show you the website. You know, I like to show you websites for conferences so you can get it in your head what it is you're looking at. This is Writers on the Rock. Mm-hmm. This is a Christian Writers Conference, and it's only one day, Saturday, February the 23rd. It's coming up. It's just about a little less than a month from now, and begins at 8:30 in the morning, ends at 4:30 in the afternoon. Box lunch is included. The location is the Bear Valley Church in Lakewood, Colorado. That's about 15 minutes from Denver. Okay, the suggested airport would be Denver International. Now, do note that the conference sold out last year. This is a relatively new conference. I think this is the 5th year, and they sold out last year. It's really the. Let me come back to you. We haven't got to the keynotes yet, but I mean, there are some top people.
I know, isn't that exciting?
It's a one-day conference for $99 until February the 2nd, which is right around the corner. This is, I think, Wednesday. And it goes up a little bit. And I'm sorry, I do not know how much it goes up, but I think it's $20 more.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot, but it goes up a little bit.
So do pay attention. If you're even slightly interested, take action on this now. Let's talk about, I've got some notes here, but let me skip around here. Some of the keynoters are Philip Yancey, Jerry Jenkins. That's just 2 of them.
I know.
Linda Evans-Shepard and Tricia Lott Williford. What are you going to be teaching, Jayme?
I'm going to actually be doing another class on deep POV. So fancy that. And so I'm doing one of the craft lessons, they have it kind of a, I forgot how they phrase it, kind of a beginning, middle, high class, so to speak, and I'm kind of in the middle target. This conference is really neat in that there's a lot of new writers that attend this conference. It's nice that it is one day because it's not a tremendous monetary investment. You can kind of go in and get your feet wet. But yeah, those, I'll tell you, it's really kind of a neat thing out here in Colorado. I travel a lot back your way to go to conferences. So I love the fact that I can jump in my car and head to this one. But it's just a really beautiful, beautiful group of people that put this on. It's such a it's top notch, yet it's really low key and inviting, super friendly.
I got a chance to interview the director, David Rupert, back in the fall. Excuse me. And he made a point that they really welcome. If you want to write, you don't have to make. There's not a litmus test.
Yes.
If you want to write, come.
Yeah.
And they also have writers groups and so forth, and they're branching out and helping other people in different areas. In other ways, and some in other areas as well. Maybe groups from other areas. Let me see if I can say this right. Groups from other areas are trying to learn the process because it's going so well and so beneficial to the body.
Yeah, it is, and they're very, very faithful to their mission. It's a very edifying conference.
Really. Not his words, but mine. It's not so much about the money in this environment. It is about the craft, learning the craft.
Yeah.
Knowing that you have the gift.
Yes.
Confirmation that you have the gift. And then once we're there, then how do we grow that gift, and how do we go even another level? Whatever level you're on, there's opportunity to go a higher level, if I'm understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm really excited that Jerry Jenkins is going to be there. He, that's where I did my original teaching. My original writing was through the Christian Writers Guild, and he was quite a monumental person in my life to kind of cheer me on that I could do this. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him.
Wow, that's cool. Now, as I understand it, the schedule will be a keynote in the morning and then 2 morning clinics. And then lunch, which is a box lunch, that's included in the price of $99 until February the 2nd, and then it's going to go up a bit, okay?
Yeah.
And the conference is February the 23rd. So we're talking about, it's still active, but still available, but they sold out last year. They expect to this year. And then the afternoon after the box lunch, then there'll be the same rotation. 1 keynote and then 2 afternoon clinics. And Debbie Hardy was here with us recently in the summit. She's going to be teaching new to writing is her question. Here's the roadmap. So we're looking forward to that. And there's another one that I see. So we can't list them all because they're all fabulous. But Richard Ryman is going to teach Join the Audiobook Revolution. Well, that sounds pretty cool. Do you know Richard? Happen to know Richard, Jayme?
I don't. No.
Okay. All right. Next time you come with us, you won't be able to say that.
That's right. That's right. You know, here's a little teaser. If any of you are skiers or want to be skiers or just like to sit in a ski lodge, the snow out here is monumental, and you could fly. You could treat yourself to a ski weekend. Come and go to the conference. Go ski Sunday, and really make it a little Colorado vacation. There's my little Colorado tourism ad for you.
Yes. Let me, we lost a visual for some reason, so let me go back up and share this website one more time before we check comments and questions before we close out. Mary, here is the Writers on the Rock website, writersontherock.com/conference.com. And of course, I have that in the links. If you're watching the replay, I have that in all the information that we've mentioned today in the links that I add after the program ends. Okay, let's check one more time. Do a run through on comments and questions.
Oh, Mary Lester, that's cute.
Two people have already inquired about the beautiful purple painting.
The Perry one, yeah. Oh yes, thank you. That's a new one I did.
Okay, looks like we're good. Feel free to, viewers. Oh, here's Judy Morrow. Jerry Jenkins was also a cheerleader for me my very first time at the Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference.
Oh yeah.
This was years ago. She said, and then what a delight that he endorsed my devotional book, The Listening Heart. Wow.
Oh, that's wonderful. He's a special man. He has a tremendous heart, and he is as wildly successful as he has been. His heart still lies in rising up new Christian writers, and I love that about him. He's a good man.
I have been privileged to receive Judy Morrow's book, The Listening Heart. Oh, my word. It's so deep and so wonderful. Very thought-provoking, very good. And one for every day of the week, every day of the year, as I recall.
Ooh, good to know.
Yeah, it's very
nice to have a new devotional.
Yes. It keeps it fresh, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, let's see. Thank you so much for being here, Jayme Manfield.
Oh, this was fun. I've been looking forward to this. And, you know, sometimes I feel so far away out here in Colorado, but I know everyone's kind of all over the place. So super fun to hang out and spend time with everybody.
Well, it was wonderful to learn from you, and it wouldn't be as so interesting if I hadn't had the opportunity to read Rush and Chasing the Butterfly, because this is good stuff right here. Good stuff. I enjoyed both of them, and I really felt with Mary. I traveled along with Mary, and I was elated as she was. It's wonderful. Viewers, You know, we appreciate you being here. If you weren't here, there would be no reason for us to be here. So we're so grateful. It's nice when you invite people and they attend.
Yeah,
Which is the way it works, but it's,
that's right.
you could change at any moment. This has been Marketers on a Mission, episode number 226, Reeling in Readers with Deep Point of View with author Jayme Manfield. Tomorrow, professional editor and conference director, Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference director, by the way, Kathy Ide. She's going to join us tomorrow and tell us how to become a freelance editor. So if you're thinking about possibly, or you know enough, or you savvy enough, do you have enough training, or could you get enough training to start a business of being a freelance editor? You'll know more about it tomorrow. We're here every weekday, 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. The summit is during the month of January, but we're here every weekday, okay? This is our 10th. This is our 11th month.
Wow.
11th month, 5 days a week, baby. And it's been so wonderful. We've learned so much and had such a wonderful time. This program is designed exclusively for you, viewers, for you, to help you learn the craft of professional writing, speaking, and marketing from those who are already doing it. Because there are people who are so hungry for your message, your unique message that Christ has gifted you with from your vast experiences, the lessons and the wisdom, the insights that he has taught you. And he wants you to share that with other people so they can see how wonderful he is, so they can believe that they are also a candidate for his wisdom and his love and his gifts and his provisions. Amen. Nobody can do what you can do. So we are here to help you learn how other people are doing it. And in the case of the summit, hour-long master classes. I mean, can't beat that with a sick and for free. Can you believe it? If you would like to know more about how to get free access to all of the recordings after the summit, you can go to my website, marketersonamission.com, and you can enroll. It's free to enroll. The recordings are free as well. That's taking place, and Friday is our last day, so now is the time to act if you're interested. Okay? Thank you once again, Jayme. We appreciate it so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Such a blessing.
We'll be back in a few minutes online to give you some comments and questions and answer what you have within reason. Okay, within reason. See you tomorrow.